think this is a huge case that can reflect lots of aspects about the occupation.
Come here.
But I would just brief about
Let me tell you
some
something.
aspects
This,
of
this is a
the
legal
general
right, okay?
prisoners
This
case.
issue has been
I
settled
will
here.
be
This is a public
discussing more
event. It's a
about the
public
children,
university, and I have the right.
prisoners,
Get the
about
campus police. If they
arresting
tell me not to
students,
videotape, I'll turn it off.
about
But you get the campus police.
human rights defenders, the arrest and attack against human rights defenders, about administrative detention, and I would believe you would be very interested about the latest hunger strike that took place in the prisons in the last 2 years, and what's the implications and the circumstances concerning the hunger strike and the latest agreements with the prison authority. So currently there's 4,900 Palestinian prisoners are in the Israeli prisons. All of these prisoners, of course, were moved from the occupied territories to prisons inside Israel, and this is actually the first violation for the international law, because Israel as an occupier is not allowed to transfer people under occupation from the occupied territories to inside its territory, but actually back since 1995 Israel moved all the political prisoners to inside Israel without any respect for the international law, especially for the 4th Geneva Convention. And maybe here it should be highlighted that Israel never respected the 4th Geneva Convention or the other international humanitarian law. Rather, they claim that this is not occupied territories, and this is why they claim they don't have any obligation to implement the 4th Geneva Convention. All these political prisoners actually, as I said, currently 4,900, but if we take the so many years of occupation since '67, there were more than 750,000 Palestinians who were arrested, which means this policy of imprisonment actually is systematic, and it's targeting every house in the Palestinian community, and it's done in purpose, in order to affect the whole life of the Palestinian community, to break the community, and the torture, the other methods that they were used in all these years were developed according to this theory in order to maintain the control and the oppression in the society. Out of the 4,900, currently there's 14 Palestinian women that they are held in the Israeli prisons. In the past, the number used to be much higher. The biggest exchange happened in the exchange deal in 2011. Then there were like around 132 Palestinian women. All these years of the occupation, more than 10,000 Palestinian women were arrested in the different periods. Currently, there's also 236 Palestinian children arrested, and out of them, 39 they are under age 16. And the minimum age for the criminal responsibility according to the military orders is 12 years old, so they can arrest actually as young as 12 years old. In the last 2 years, 3 years, we are also documenting cases of attacking and arresting children as young as 9 years old or 7 years old in some cases, but in these cases they cannot keep them for long periods in detention, so they just harass them, interrogate them for several hours, and then they should be released, because legally they cannot keep them if they are under 12. And on the issue of the children, I would like to highlight the fact that all these years, actually till 2011, Israel was, 2012, Israel was defining the Palestinian children as people as age 16, not even according to the internal Israeli criminal code, not also as the International Treaty for the Protection of Children that Israel is a member of this treaty. And actually, if we compare the internal justice system inside Israel for the protection of children, it's very well developed. It's applying all the standards of the international treaty, but there's lots of discriminatory policies when it comes for the Palestinian children arrested under the military system and not the civil system. So all these years, Palestinian children were defined as 16 years old. Between 16 and 18, they were treated totally as adults. And those who were defined as juveniles, it doesn't mean that they were prosecuted or trialed in front of special courts for juvenile children. No, they were prosecuted in the same military court system that was applying for the adults, which means the system didn't ever offer any kind of protection for these juveniles, especially when it comes for sentences. The sentences were just real imprisonment. There was no programs of rehabilitation, of social support, or any other kind of follow-up of inspector or social person. That this is how the Israeli system, by the way, is dealing with the cases of children that violates the law, where the imprisonment, the real imprisonment, is the last resort for the court to use and not the first punishment, where in the Palestinian children case, it's the only and the first punishment that the court will use. In 2009, late 2009, beginning of 2010, the Israeli military system invented a new military system for the juveniles, and they changed as well the military order that defines juveniles, and they were starting to work according to this military order in 2012 in defining Palestinian children as 18 years old and less than 18. And now they are prosecuted in the separate court. It's the same, actually physically it's the same court, where they have one judge that he was qualified to be a judge for juveniles, sits there, and it's supposed to be held with closed doors. But actually from the other points of the procedures and the evidences and all the other related issues, it's the same like the trials for the adults. And still, when they want to sentence children, they don't take in consideration the age when you committed the crime, which means if you committed the event when you were 17 and the trial took 1 year and you became over than 18 while you are in detention, you would be sentenced as an adult and not as a child. This is still discriminating Palestinian children, because in Israel the certain age that limits is the age when you committed the event, not when you are sentenced. So actually all this issue of having the new court for children didn't cause for a real change on the reality of the Palestinian children that they got to be arrested. Lately, in the last couple of months, we're reporting an increase, a serious increase in arresting and targeting children, especially in the city Hebron. And I'm sure you are aware about the complication in Hebron with the settlers living in the middle of the city, and all the related issues of the house demolitions and closing the market, the main market in Hebron, and the daily clashes between settlers and the Palestinian community. And there's daily attacks on young children in their schools, sometimes entering to the schools, arresting them from schools, or waiting till the end of the day and arresting these children, claiming that they are involved in throwing stones. And as I said, the important thing that they are accusing these children with throwing stones, now they are referring to throwing stone as an attempt to kill, which means the sentence could be for 10 years or 20 years for throwing stones. All the children under age 16, they are separated in one section in Hasharon prison. This is a special prison for juveniles in the Israeli context, but just the people under 16 from the Palestinian side, they are held there. In the daily life in the prison, they don't get any privileges as children. They used to have 4 hours of daily education offered by a Palestinian Israeli teacher that he's allowed to enter to the prison and to give them 4 main subjects. Not all of the subjects are allowed to be studied in the prison. And actually it's according to the Israeli curriculum and not the Palestinian curriculum, which means after their release they cannot use it. And most of these children that they would be released and enforced to repeat their class, they would decide not to go back to school, and there's a huge impact on the children out of this experience of imprisonment and losing the education, and actually after being released not going back to the schools. Those who are between 16 and 18, they are held in the same sections with the adults, which means they don't get any special programs or rehabilitation or education at all that offered for children. So all this change that happened lately in the last 2 years, we believe it was out of the international pressure, especially on the arrest of children. And they decided to do these changes because they cannot justify anymore why they define Palestinian children, people under 16, while in their own system they define any children, a person under 18. There's lots of details concerning the daily life in the prison, not just for the children, but in general. I don't want to enter to these details because I think it's really very long, and we can keep it for the questions and answers. About arresting students, I think this should be very important for you as student activists in this campus, and I'm aware that this campus also in the past, some students were harassed, interrogated, and arrested for different reasons, and I think we can connect in these policies where the Israeli occupation since '67 actually were targeting specifically the Palestinian universities by arresting students, by closing the universities. In the first Intifada, for example, Birzeit University was closed for several years. This is, as I said, in order to use the policy of imprisonment and other restrictions to affect the whole society. Currently, we don't have a very exact statistics about how many students are from the 4,900, but there's a few hundreds of students, and of course there's daily arrests and daily targeting. They're not entering though to the campuses anymore like they used to do, but usually students would be arrested from their homes. Most of the students would be arrested because of their activism inside the universities. And it should be clear that Israel, back in '67, when they started with implementing the military order system, they defined all the Palestinian political parties as illegal. And later on, they decided to associate all the Palestinian student movements with these political parties, and this is why all the studential movement in Palestine are illegal, according to the military orders. So actually, it's enough that they can prove that you are a member in any studential movement, even without doing any activities. This is a reason to be arrested and sentenced for at least 1 year or 2 years in prison. And of course, any kind of activities that includes cultural events or political activities inside the university is illegal, and this is a reason for arrest. Actually, also lately in the last 5 years, there's specific targeting, not just for students who are active in the universities, but also young people that they are active in what we call the civil resistance in the case of the wall and the settlements, where we have the weekly demonstrations in villages like Bil'in, Na'lin, and Nabi Saleh, and other villages against the construction of the apartheid wall. And these targets specifically young people for different reasons. One of these reasons that some of these children would be harassed and tortured, and it would be easily causing them to confess and give names for other activists in these villages, especially the leaders. And I would refer to the special case of Abdullah Abu Rahmi, the leader of the local committees in Bil'in, and as well Basim al-Tamimi, the activist from Nabi Saleh, that both of them, they were convicted in the military court based on confessions of other young people claiming that they were inciting, they were requesting people to go to the Friday demonstrations, and they were throwing stones, and both of them, they were sentenced based on these confessions for more than 1 year. And we call these cases human rights defenders cases because we define, and actually this is the international definition for human rights defenders, that any person that is defending in any way rights of others, of course in a peaceful resistance way, he could be considered according to the UN special standards as a human rights defenders. As well in the EU system, there's special protection for the human rights defenders. Currently, we are specifying the cases of Ayman Nasser. He's our colleague in the Damir Association. He was the field researcher in the Damir, and he's arrested since October the 15th, 2012, claiming that he was doing his activities in support to the Palestinian prisoners in the last 2 years in the name of the Palestinian Popular Front political party that is declared illegal, of course. And they're trying, actually this is the way how they are trying to illegalize the work of the civil organizations, the civil society and the human rights organizations inside the occupied territories by associating these NGOs with the political parties. And as I said, since automatically all the political parties are declared illegal, so it's enough to have relation with these parties in order to make your work as illegal. And of course, I think this theory of the war against terror that was developed mostly after September 11th, the Israelis were connected a lot with this theory, and they were saying this is what we were facing since '67 in the occupied territories, and this is how they also teach the Americans to declare about hundreds of civil associations as illegal associations in order to justify attacking the work of these organizations in the name of the war against terror. And this has caused arrest of hundreds of people who were involved in working in organizations that they were offering humanitarian aid or cultural issues, or in some cases sport organizations that they were having or handling sport clubs in different Palestinian villages. They were associating them, for example, with Hamas or Islamic Jihad in order to justify closing them and imprisoning people who were working in these places. And the other case on the human rights defender, he used to be an activist in Stop the Wall campaign, and he was their main campaigner and youth activist mobilizer, and he was arrested under the suspicion that he was contacting Hezbollah. And this is, of course, would be the most serious issue for the Israeli security point of view. So they are also trying to connect this kind of activism with the youth, with outside terrorist groups as they define them. And he's Hassan Karaja, his name. He was arrested at the end of the year, and he's still in detention. And currently his court is monitored actually by the EU representatives in the occupied territories, because we believe that this guy was attacked just because of his activism in the wall campaign, not because seriously he was involved with any information exchange with Hezbollah or any other external party. So both of them, Nasser, Ayman and Hassan, they are facing trial. Some of the activists would be subjected for what we call administrative detention. This is actually arresting someone without any charge, without real evidences, without bringing real evidences to the court, but rather based on secret information. Actually, the military governor can arrest any Palestinian person based on secret information, claiming that this secret information shows that you are a threat to the security, and it's enough to issue an order for up till 6 months, and it could be renewed for indefinite time. The problem in the administrative detention that it's not limited for certain period, which make it